This is our fifth update as we walk through kind of different things we've done with our capital campaign and all that goes into that. And we probably will give a sixth one here in maybe a month and a half, 2 months, that is just specifically on the financial piece of these things. But I want to give you just kind of a rundown on where we're at on new construction. Got a lot of exciting things to say. Let me start just by showing you a couple renders. Most of you have seen these renders, but some of the outside and what the buildings will look like from different angles. There's actually a new one of what it looks like at night, which is really cool to see the lighting and kind of what that would look like. There's a couple of the lobby that will end up being remodeled because the new auditorium it'll tie into that, and you're ripping up walls anyway and carpet and all that stuff. So that lobby will be the same space almost. It will be in terms of footprint, but the functionality will change a degree. So they have some of the lobby. There's also some, I think of back towards the lobby, it starts to get into the kids space. If Scott hit that button, see if you can go to the next one. There it is. So it starts to show you some of that, some of the coffee bar on the side. Towards the back is where you get into the kids space. Of course, the sanctuary proper is still set to be about 750 seats. That gives us about 50% more capacity than is in this room. This room right now is set up for about 520. So you have the sanctuary and then the secure kids wing that's there on the lower floor of the 2-story building, and then the offices end up being above that. This next render I think is new. It's kind of the large space for the kids that most of you probably hadn't seen as of yet, and where they would do junior church and some VBS stuff, and Wednesday night kids church, and they even have their own bathrooms that are secure. So there's so many pieces of this. But I want to be sure that we don't get so lost in the minutia that we forget the vision and why we're doing it in the first place, to expand the footprint so that we can reach more people, so that we can even expand the footprint of the gospel, Lord willing. And we want to do these things to save us even on the practical side. I mean, there's going to be so many benefits for extra classroom space for our school that desperately needs it. Even this room, setting it up and tearing it down, and on I could go with all the benefits that these projects are going to add to our ministry. And we have good news, bad news today. I want to do a raise of hands. Let me do a poll. If I said good news, bad news, who wants good news first? Who wants good news first? Who wants bad news first? I thought that would be the case, so bad news first. I hate to start with bad news, but it is what it is. We were not approved for the grant from the Lasko Foundation. That was a little over $1 million that we applied for, and we heard back just here a couple days ago that we were not approved for that, which is disappointing, sure, but I've been telling people, look, if we don't get approved for it, I won't be crestfallen. And in the back of my head, I thought, is that true? Will I actually be crestfallen? And I wasn't. I got the news, and I was like, oh, that's okay, you know? We didn't know this existed when we started our capital campaign, and that's okay. A lot of other churches got blessed by it, and I'm happy for them. So we never tied ourselves to the mast of a grant or outside money. It would have been nice, honestly, but that's okay, and that's the bad news. The good news is that we are all systems go, and we are going to break ground here soon. That'll be middle to late May, Lord willing. There still are a couple variables or wrinkles that I guess could throw a kink in that, but it is highly unlikely that it will. At this point, our site permit is almost in. We're at the very final stage of that. There's no reason it won't be by May. Our site plans are 100% done. Those are already out to bid. We'll have those bids back here in about a week. We have the cash in the bank to do all of our site work and to fund that completely with cash. So that site work is going to be, we're going to drop some trees. We're going to put in an infiltration trench down over the hill by the pond. That's for our water runoff. We will expand our parking lot. This picture shows you the green is the new addition in terms of building. Then that grayish red is the new addition in terms of parking. That would be additional parking that's added. So there's some in the roundabout back by the school that'll turn into parking, and that'll be really close to the building. The rest of it is a little further away. It's not quite where our gravel lot is now. It's closer than that, but it is attaching or affixing to our current parking lot. There even is an egress lane. Some of you may not have seen this yet, but on the very back of the campus by our property line, there will be a one-way egress lane. That will be really helpful for us on Sunday, but honestly, it'll be very helpful for us on Monday through Friday with our school. We have a ton of cars and buses all over the place, and that will provide a flow of traffic that will be very, very good for us. So that will happen. Digging out the footers will happen, all that site work, and that's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be exciting to see this big equipment and machinery roll in, and the things that we've been thinking about and dreaming of and planning for and giving towards for a while actually start to materialize in tangible ways, and to see earth moving, that's gonna be so exciting. So we'll have a groundbreaking ceremony, and we'll make much of it, but that's coming up here in 2 to 3 months. That's gonna happen. For the record, this is why we're not doing an Easter egg hunt this year. Some of you may have noticed in our Easter promotional stuff, there's not an Easter egg hunt for the kids. We plan Easter the first week of January, and we make the program, the plan, we send things to print, we get the website submitted. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And in the first week of January, we weren't sure if our site work was gonna begin in April or in May, and we weren't sure that we were gonna actually have that field to do an Easter egg hunt. So we decided to put, no pun intended, our eggs in a different basket. And so it's gonna be great for the kids. Your kids are gonna love Easter weekend, but that's not happening. And if you're like super bummed about it, you can come to my house and I'll put one on for you, and we'll make it up. So just so you know, that's a little bit of the logic as to why. It's not because we hate you or we hate Easter eggs or something. But that's happening soon, real soon. After that happens will be the erection of the buildings. I put S in parentheses because we think of it as one kind of big construction project, which it is, but it technically is separate buildings. There's a pre-engineered metal building that is our auditorium, and then there is a separate traditional metal stud building, and they actually will build the auditorium and put the roof on, and then they will build the 2-story building and put the roof on that. They'll build them right after each other, but they'll be separate from each other. So those will begin to happen after that. We expected kind of to move straight into that as soon as site work was done. Our timeline for the last 6 months on getting those buildings in hand, when we hit order, it was a 10 to 12 week turnaround time to have the pre-engineered metal building here. And about 10 days ago, that timeline changed drastically, not drastically, but significantly, I would say. So that timeline went from 10 to 12 weeks to 27 weeks. And if you can do the math on that, okay, we order it today, and we're still a couple weeks away from ordering it, but if we order it today, that puts us in September. So the realistic timeline on that building actually coming up out of the ground would be late this year, early next year. So that could be as early as September. That could be as late as maybe February or March of next year. And that's okay. Like, we've always planned on a 3 to 5 year capital campaign and kind of timeline for our projects. If we did erect the building in late this year, early next year, we would be done with construction roughly 4 to 4.5 years in to our 3 to 5 year campaign. So that makes sense for us. We have the plans that's gonna work for us. And actually there are some timelines. At first I was a little bummed that the timeline got bumped back a bit in terms of erecting the building. But the more I thought about it, the more encouraged I was by it, honestly, and I think that God's gonna work it for our good. So if we're late May, early September, a few things will happen, and just positives. Number one, it gives us some extra time to be sure that we've dotted every I and crossed every T, and that we have value engineered the project as much as we can. And by value engineering, I mean working with the architect and the builder to ensure that we're not incurring costs that we don't need to cost, and that we are building things as efficiently and financially affordable as we possibly can. So it'll give us even more time to do that, which we've been doing behind the scenes as hard as we can. It does allow us to keep paying ourselves the mortgage. So last fall, we paid off our mortgage, and every month we take that payment and we put it over into a separate account, and we save that money for these projects. So it'll give us more time and a greater runway to keep saving that. It'll even allow us greater time to earn interest. We really haven't talked about this at all, but we do have the monies for the campaign. We can access them at any time, but they sit in a mutual fund with a locked I'm not gonna remember the exact number, I think it's 5.6% interest rate. We've already earned about $40,000 in interest off of the monies that have come in before we spend them. So we'll accrue a little bit more interest, and it'll even maybe help us with the economy. No guarantees here, but we're in an election year, right? And history tells us that more often than not, in an election year, the economy and the market, rates, all that sort of stuff start to turn in your favor. And so that could, we don't know for sure, but that could happen. All that to say, it gives us a better financial runway. And so we're not disappointed in that in the least, and we're just excited to kind of move our attention into physical projects and to see these things start to take shape before our very eyes. So a big picture here is that all these pieces are coming together very well. The big picture is we didn't get the grant, but we're all systems go for breaking ground in May. The erection of the building is going to be late this year, early next year. We do have a large cash runway to keep us going this year. Eventually, and this is where we'll have a deeper financial conversation in a couple months, eventually it's likely, not for sure, but it's likely that we will have to secure a construction line of credit, and whatever we would use on that line of credit would be turned into a loan. That looks like a likely scenario for us, but we're wanting to put that financial picture more concrete. So we have worked hard to have estimates from our architect and from our GC, but estimates are not bids. So at this point, a third of our construction project is already out to bid. We sent it out 2 weeks ago. All the site work, all of the excavation, all of the concrete work, the erection of the building itself, how much it costs, and we will have hard numbers in about 2 weeks' time. The remaining 2/3 of this project will be sent out to bid the first week of April. We'll have our construction documents done and we'll be ready to send that to bid. And those bids will come back through April and the first part of May. But here in about 2 months, all of these theoretical numbers that are estimates and things will actually become harder, concrete numbers, and we'll be able to have a more informed conversation at that point in time. So we're doing everything that we can to value engineer. I think everyone will be aware that over the last 2 years, something called inflation has happened, right? When we set out to do these projects and now you look at your grocery bill or your gas bill or whatever else. So we tried to bake as much of that in as we could on the front end, but actually finding out exactly where that's at will be helpful for us. I can promise you this, as a church and as a leadership team, we're committed to not financially overextending ourselves. I'll maybe leave it on this note. I've talked to a number of pastors who have been through building projects, and I have the same conversation every time. I tell them, I would like to get to the end of this process and be a healthy individual. I'd like to have a healthy soul with Jesus. I would like to have a healthy marriage, and I would like to not want to quit the ministry. Because there's a lot of pastors that get to the end of building projects and they just want to quit the ministry, and a lot of them do, frankly. How do I do this, okay? And I've got 2 pieces of advice over and over and over and over again. And the 2 pieces of advice are, number 1, don't be in every detail. You have a team around you. Let your team be the detailed people, and you stay high level, which I think I'm doing okay at. And number 2 is don't overextend yourself financially, because that'll create a stress factor for you and the church that you may not be able to overcome. So I'm committed to trying to do those things for the good of my own soul and the good of our church, but we're putting all those financial pieces together. They're almost merging with each other completely, but we have probably another 6 weeks before we fully see how they merge, and we'll talk deeper about it, and I'll be really excited for that. But all that to say, we're really excited to turn our attention from getting rid of our debt and remodels and live stream equipment, all those things, to the new construction. It's going to be a fun ride, and I'm excited to take it with you.